traveling. I don't exactly remember the day Mommy came to live with us. I don't remember a car pulling up to the gate with her inside it. But I remember how it was after she arrived. I had become prisoner. I could no longer run and shout and jump and sing. Even sound caused her pain. I don't remember her walking around the house either, or serving in my mother's rum bar. I only remember her stretched out in bed, narrow and straight, her legs so long they hung over the edge. The floral curtains in her bedroom were always drawn, so the room remained dark and slightly cool. She wore white always, and the sheets too were white, and the white cloth drenched with bay rum was tied to her head. I think she was dying, but nobody told me this. My mother and Miss Eileen, and sometimes even me, we had to help her to sit up and to walk to the doorway to get a sip of fresh air. Someone had to bring the spoon to her mouth with the yam already crushed and steamy with butter, had to turn the glass of warm milk to her head so she could swallow, had to help her sit on the pail or on the chair that was placed in the bathtub. Someone had to help her wash. I resented her. It's as if she came and suddenly my childhood was over. It's as if she came and suddenly my mother was taken away again. I already had to compete with the bar, which was open all day, every day, even Sundays after church, and with the committees she chaired, for everyone wanted her to sit on coffee board, water board, and road building board. She was a woman with loud and high-minded opinions. They wanted her on their side. Perhaps it was Mamet's helplessness I hated, the constant attention and care she demanded, and the smell of illness and decay that pervaded the house, her everlasting moaning all through the night, and how I had been relegated to being seen and not heard in my own house. I spat in her face one day, her face that was full of lines like old lace and mottled with brown spots. She did not wipe it away, and the spit bubbled there for some time near her nose before it sank into her skin. I had had it with her. I couldn't go anywhere anymore. School trip, church outing, choir practice, school play was the last straw. On the appointed day, she came down with a fever that shot her temperature so high, I had to cool her down hourly with a wet cloth at her throat, had to frequently change the clothes she was sweating through and feed her the bitter medicine. The wad flew into her face before I could even think, and her eyes flickered open with a light of interest before closing again. "I'm going to tell Nora," was all she said. After the lashing, I didn't speak to my mother for days. When she finally died, I was relieved. She died one cool, rainy afternoon with the sound of the water pelting the zinc roof and rivulets pooling across the window panes. She died sandwiched between my mother and her sister, my Aunt Doris, her head leaning on my mother's breast. She had been born in 1865, just 30 years after slavery officially ended. She was 107. The body was not sent to a morgue, but was washed and dressed in white and laid out in state in a cool, darkened corner of the house for family and friends to observe and pay respects to. The laying out lasted 3 full days and 3 full nights. A hog was slaughtered and left on a spit to roast slowly, its aroma slowly stirring up the night. 3 goats were also butchered and thrown in a pot to make mannish water and curried stew. Women with enormous breasts, dressed in white with turbans on their heads, poured in from all over the district to sing, and to cook and to sing morning songs, and to tell stories about the dead, and to weep openly. An inordinate amount of rum and tobacco was consumed by the men who were hired to dig the grave and to hammer nails into the coffin, which they built from the limbs of mahogany trees that were plentiful on the property. The men, too, had long winding tales about the dead, and they wept copiously, their eyes red and bulbous with drink. Finally, she was buried near the tomb where my mother's brother, Uncle Egbert, was also buried. But Mamette did not stay buried for long.
Mercy. There are 3 facts, 3 stories I inherited from my family that keep me up at night. 1. My father met my mother in a whorehouse along the tourist belt. 2. My aunt, also a prostitute, brought us to America by marrying her U.S. sailor client. 3. My father lies. He recounts these stories to me over and over, and they change each time. I don't know if they're rumors or if they're true. Somewhere among them, there's a reason why my mother left. There's a truth of how they met, fell in love, and had us, my sister and me. It's a story he won't say, a story he won't admit, a story I've run away from. Growing up, I didn't have time to think about why my mother wasn't there. I had to take care of my father, my ate, my Lola. But in the midst of taking care of everyone, I left. It's a long story. I paid my way through college. My father pulled out credit cards in my name with my social security number, and I was in a mountain of debt before 21. So I eloped to my high school sweetheart who was enlisted into the Navy. And encircling of my aunt's story, I couldn't help it. On some days, on bad ones, I think of myself as a poor whore who married for money, a whore who left her family. It's what started my insomnia, the dreams. Ever since I thought about leaving my husband, they started. They've returned from my childhood. I only question my father about these half-truths now, after all these years, because of the nightmares, because I think about my mother, because I imagine leaving my husband. So the dreams come, and every night I have the same one, even if it shifts a bit. It's a dream of my father being beaten by an American GI with a baseball bat, and then it switches to an ocean. I'm dropped in the middle of an island, and I'm on the edge where land meets the sea. I see someone on the boat. I'm on the boat. Their heads in the water. I push them deeper into the waves. They're fighting me. But like the GI, I beat them. I drown them. I wake up in a sweat. I come to angry. Sometimes that person is my father. Sometimes that person is my husband. We have history. It isn't all good. But most of the time, that person is my mother. I can never picture her face. It's always white, pale like a ghost, like the rough hide of the bat like a slung. The sound she makes when I push her head down is always a low murmur, a guttural tick, tick, tick. It scares the shit out of me. I've always been superstitious like my grandmother. Lola always called my mother the swung, the bitch, the whore. I shiver to let these thoughts unwrap me. I get up and walk to the bathroom and splash water on my face. I see my reflection in the mirror. This is another fact I hate, another truth I inherited. I look exactly like my mother. People tell me this all the time. I act exactly like her too. I never return their compliment. I would turn my back to them and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know how she looks like. It's been years since I've been back home in LA. My father snores in the other room like a mountain infested with chirping birds and shrouded by smoke. I can hear him breathe in and out loud like he's struggling to breathe. I walk to the closet of my old room. It's dark. I open the dusty large chest I keep all my childhood mementos and photographs in. I rummage through the pile, throwing the ones I don't want over my shoulder. I find it, the picture of my mother and father, laughing, smiling, and I'm in the middle. The on a white couch. She's dressed in a pink summer frock. My father's in a suit and wears dark-rimmed sunglasses. His hair is so salve. He reminds me of my husband, just the way the whole body smiles and moves when they laugh. I wear a white baptismal dress and 1 or 2, the year my mother left. I switch on the light and stare at the photo longer. They're happy. I know what would happen if I walked to my father's room, knock, and show him this picture. Ask him, what happened? He'll shrug and snap at me for waking him up. He'll close his eyes and stay silent, tight-lipped, struggle to breathe. Tell me there are things we can't talk about in Filipino families. He'll close up, kick me out of his room, and shut the door. If he couldn't sleep, I would hear the karaoke machine turn on, the beat of a ballet playing, his voice streaming out of the door frame slits. The room would be this mixture of silence and love songs till the sun rose, and even then, as I would cook his favorite breakfast, as the smell of smoke, of frying spam and eggs crowd the hallways and rooms, he would stay angry, moody, silent. It's his way of moving on.